The alien princess had once believed her life would be full of purpose. From the day she was born, the palace scholars said she carried rare potential. Her people expected greatness from her. And for many years, she tried to live up to that hope, but as time passed, whispers slowly replaced praise. Something about her was different. Something unseen, but deeply felt. On her world, bonding was more than tradition. It was the heart of society. Leaders bonded with partners whose minds and bodies resonated with their own. These bonds strengthened families, stabilized governments, and even affected planetary systems. Without a bond, a royal could not rule properly. Without a bond, hope slowly faded. The princess tried again and again. Suitors came from noble houses, distant systems, and powerful clans. Each time, the same result followed. The resonance failed. The bond would not form. Some suitors left politely. Others looked at her with quiet fear. A few spread rumors once they returned home. Soon, invitations stopped arriving. Years later, the palace halls felt too large and too quiet. Servants spoke softly around her. Advisors avoided her gaze. Even her own family, though not cruel, treated her like fragile glass. They did not say it aloud, but she knew the truth. In their eyes, she was a problem that could not be solved. The princess spent more time alone, often in the high garden where the city lights shimmered below. From there, she could watch ships arrive and leave the capital. Each ship carried stories, futures, and choices. None of them were hers. On the same cycle, far from palace walls, a small human vessel slipped out of hyperspace. It was not large, nor was it armed heavily. It carried a diplomatic team, technicians, and a single human assigned as security escort. His name was Elias Carter. Elias was not important by galactic standards. He held no noble rank. He commanded no fleet. He was simply a human who followed orders and tried to do the right thing. Humanity was still new to the wider galaxy. Humans were known for adaptability and stubborn survival, but few saw them as equals. Most worlds viewed them as useful helpers. Nothing more. When Elias arrived at the alien capital, he was overwhelmed by its scale. Towers of living crystal stretched into the sky. Soft lights pulsed through the streets like a living heartbeat. Everything felt old, powerful, and far beyond anything Earth had built. His assignment was simple. Stay close to the diplomatic group. Follow protocol. Do not offend anyone. And above all, stay invisible. On the first evening, the royal court hosted a formal gathering to welcome the delegation. Elias stood near the edge of the grand hall. Armor polished. Posture straight. He had trained himself to observe without staring. Still, his attention was drawn to one figure. The princess entered quietly, without announcement. No music followed her. No voices rose in praise. She moved with grace, but her shoulders carried a weight that did not belong to someone so young. Her eyes scanned the room, careful and distant, as if she expected rejection before it arrived. Elias did not know who she was at first. He only noticed that she stood apart from everyone else. During the event, Elias felt he was being watched. Not with suspicion, but curiosity. When he glanced toward the garden doors, he saw the princess standing alone near the balcony, looking out over the city. Something about her stillness felt familiar to him. He had seen the same expression on soldiers who felt forgotten. Later that evening, fate placed them on the same path. A minor technical issue delayed the diplomats, and Elias was asked to wait near the outer garden. The princess was already there, standing beneath softly glowing leaves. Neither spoke at first. Finally, Elias broke the silence. He did not bow deeply or speak formal words. He simply said hello, like he would to anyone else. The princess turned, surprised. Most avoided her unless duty demanded it. She studied him carefully. His voice held no fear, no expectation. They spoke briefly. About the city lights. About how quiet the garden felt compared to the hall. Elias did not ask her name. She did not ask his purpose. For a moment, titles did not matter. Something subtle shifted. Hidden sensors embedded deep within the palace reacted. Ancient systems, long dormant, flickered to life for the first time in centuries. Energy patterns changed. Advisors monitoring background systems noticed unusual readings, but dismissed them as calibration errors. The princess felt it too. A warmth she had not felt before. Not overwhelming, just present. Real. When palace attendants arrived to escort her back inside, the moment ended. She returned to her chambers that night, unable to sleep. Hope was dangerous. She had learned that long ago, yet something refused to fade. The next day, she asked for the human to be assigned closer to the court. Her advisors questioned the request, but denied nothing outright. Humans were neutral. Humans were safe. Elias was informed of the change without explanation. He accepted it without complaint. Over the following days, their paths crossed more often. Brief conversations. Shared silences. Elias listened when she spoke. He did not try to fix her. He did not offer false comfort. He treated her like a person, not a broken future. The princess began to smile again, though softly. Servants noticed. Court members whispered. Ancient texts were quietly reviewed by scholars who felt uneasy about recent sensor anomalies. One night, deep within the palace core, systems long thought inactive recorded a single line of data. Resonance detected. Compatibility unknown. Probability impossible. And yet, it had begun. Far above the planet, the stars watched silently as a choice formed, one that would change the meaning of hope for more than just a princess. The palace did not change overnight, but something within it shifted. The quiet halls still echoed with careful footsteps, and the advisors still spoke in measured tones, yet an unseen tension lingered in the air. It followed the princess wherever she went, like a question no one dared to ask aloud. The strange sensor readings continued. At first, the palace scientists assumed the systems were malfunctioning. Many of the machines were ancient, built long before modern calibration standards. Errors happened. That was the safest explanation. Still, the readings appeared only when the human guard was nearby. When he left the area, the signals faded. When he returned, they rose again. The advisors did not like patterns they could not explain. The princess, however, felt stronger each day. Not physically stronger in a dramatic way, but steadier. Her thoughts felt clearer. Her steps felt lighter. For the first time in years, she woke each morning without the familiar heaviness in her chest. She did not fully understand why, but she knew it was connected to the human. Elias Carter remained unaware of the attention growing around him. He followed his routine, stood his posts, and spoke politely when addressed. He noticed the way others watched him now, with narrowed eyes and careful expressions. Humans were rarely watched like this. It made him uncomfortable, but he assumed it was normal curiosity. When he spoke with the princess, those looks faded from his mind. Their conversations were simple. They talked about small things, the weather patterns over the city, the differences between human food and alien meals. Elias told stories of Earth, of wide skies and open land. The princess listened closely, fascinated by a world without bonding rituals or royal expectations. "You choose your own paths," she said once. "Most of the time," Elias replied. "Sometimes the path chooses you." True. She thought about that long after he left. The royal council met in private chambers beneath the palace. Ancient walls surrounded them, carved with symbols of unity and tradition. The lead advisor spoke first. Her voice calm, but sharp. "The readings are real," she said. "They are not errors." A murmur spread through the room. Another advisor leaned forward. "Human biology cannot bond with our kind. It has never happened." "Never recorded," the lead advisor corrected. "There is a difference." 1809. They reviewed old records, sealed texts, and forgotten data archives. Deep within them, they found references to something called cross-resonance. Rare, unstable, dismissed as myth after several failed attempts centuries ago. Most of the council wanted the matter closed. The princess had suffered enough disappointment. Allowing hope again would only hurt her. Others feared something else entirely. If this is real, one advisor said quietly, then it changes more than her future. It changes the balance of power. Meanwhile, whispers spread beyond the palace. Noble families noticed the princess's renewed presence at public events. They saw the human standing nearby. Always calm, always steady. Rumors began to form, twisting curiosity into fear. Some nobles demanded answers. Others demanded action. The princess sensed the tension growing. She had lived with rejection long enough to recognize it in others. One evening, she asked Elias to walk with her through the high garden again. The lights below shimmered like stars trapped on the surface of the world. "They are afraid," she said softly. Elias did not ask who. He already knew. "I don't want to cause trouble for you," he said. "Or for your people." "You are not the cause," she replied. "You are only the mirror." He looked at her then, truly looked. Not as a princess, not as a symbol, but as someone standing at the edge of something fragile. "If you want me to leave," he said, "I will." She shook her head slowly. "I spent my life being left. I will not ask that of you." That night, the palace systems spiked again. This time, the alerts reached the highest security levels. Ancient safeguards activated. Locked chambers opened for the first time in generations. The council could no longer ignore it. The next morning, Elias was summoned not to the council, but to a neutral observation chamber. Scientists explained nothing clearly. They asked questions, ran harmless scans, and spoke in cautious tones. Elias answered honestly, though confusion filled his thoughts. "Am I in trouble?" he asked at last. "No," one scientist said. "You are unexpected." The princess was not allowed to attend the session. That angered her more than she expected. She had spent too long being protected from truth. This involved her life, her future. She confronted the council directly. "You cannot discuss me without me," she said, her voice steady but firm. The room fell silent. The lead advisor bowed her head slightly. "Then you must understand the risk." "I understand disappointment," the princess replied. "I understand loneliness. If there is even a chance, it may fail," the advisor said. "I have survived failure," the princess said. "What I have not survived is emptiness." Her words carried weight. The council agreed to proceed carefully. No rituals, no announcements, only observation. As days passed, the changes became impossible to deny. The princess's health improved. Her energy levels stabilized. Her mind resonated with clarity not seen before. And always, the effect strengthened when Elias was near. Elias struggled with guilt. He did not feel special. He did not feel chosen. He was just himself. The idea that his presence could affect an entire royal system frightened him. "I don't want to hurt you," he told the princess one evening. "You are not hurting me," she said. "You are reminding me who I was meant to be." Pressure from outside the palace grew worse. Rival factions demanded the human's removal. Some accused the court of risking tradition. Others whispered of manipulation. At last, the moment came when silence was no longer possible. During a formal assembly, the princess stepped forward, standing before nobles, advisors, and foreign guests. Elias stood at the edge of the hall, unaware of what was about to happen. "I have spent years being told what cannot be," the princess said. "I have waited for hope to arrive through the paths chosen for me. It never did." The room was silent. Now hope stands where it was never expected. Eyes turned toward Elias. "I choose to explore this bond," she said clearly. "Not because it is safe, but because it is real." Gasps echoed through the hall. Elias felt the weight of the galaxy settle on his shoulders. Ancient systems awakened fully. The palace lights pulsed in harmony. For the first time in centuries, the world itself seemed to listen. And far beyond the planet, unseen forces began to take notice. The announcement changed everything. After the princess spoke before the assembly, the palace entered a state of controlled tension. No one raised their voice. No one made sudden moves, yet every system, every advisor, and every noble understood that a line had been crossed. The future was no longer following an approved path. Elias Carter felt the shift immediately. He did not move from his place at the edge of the hall. Training kept him still, but his thoughts raced. He had never asked to be chosen. He had never imagined standing at the center of an alien destiny. Part of him wanted to disappear into the background again, where humans were expected to stay. But when he looked at the princess, he saw no doubt in her eyes. The council met again, this time without delay. Emergency protocols were discussed. Safeguards were activated. Scholars brought forward ancient records once sealed and forgotten. The words in those texts were careful, uncertain, and filled with warnings. Cross-resonance was not impossible, the records said. It was unpredictable. It may strengthen her, one scholar said. Or, it may overwhelm both of them. And the human? Another asked. The scholar hesitated. No record survives long enough to say. That silence carried more fear than any alarm. Elias was given a choice. The council did not frame it as an order. Humans were allies, not subjects. He could step away now, return to his delegation, and the systems would quiet again. The princess would remain safe, if unchanged, or he could stay. No one pressured him. No one threatened him. The princess herself said nothing. She had made her choice. She would not take his. Elias spent a long night alone in a small observation chamber, staring out at the city lights. He thought of Earth, of quiet mornings, of people who had stood by him when he had nothing to offer but presence. He realized something then. Strength did not always mean action. Sometimes, it meant staying. At dawn, he returned to the palace core and gave his answer. "I'm not leaving," he said simply. The first phase of the bonding attempt began without ceremony. There was no crowd, no announcement, only a controlled chamber beneath the palace, where ancient systems interfaced with modern safeguards. The princess stood at the center, calm but alert. Elias stood across from her, wearing no armor, no symbols, just himself. The scientists monitored energy flows carefully. At first, the readings were gentle, steady, encouraging. The princess felt warmth spread through her chest, not sharp or overwhelming, but grounding. Elias felt something too, not pain, but pressure, like standing in deep water without being pushed under. Then something went wrong. External interference struck the system like a sudden storm. Energy levels spiked beyond safe limits. Alarms sounded. Consoles flashed warnings. Advisors shouted instructions. But no one moved fast enough. The resonance surged. The chamber lights flickered violently. Ancient systems reacted in ways no one had predicted. They were not designed to stop a bond once it began, only to witness it. The princess stumbled, her strength faltering for the first time. The scientists shouted for Elias to step back, to disengage before damage occurred. He hesitated. If he stepped away, the system would collapse. The bond would fail. The princess might survive, but whatever had awakened would shut down forever. He looked at her. She was not afraid. She reached out not physically, but with intent, trust. Elias made his choice. "I'm staying," he said. The pressure increased. His vision blurred. His body strained against forces it did not understand. He did not fight the energy. He did not try to control it. He anchored himself, the only way he knew how, by refusing to leave, slowly. The systems adjusted. The resonance stabilized, not because it was forced, but because it found balance. Human biology adapted, not through strength or dominance, but through endurance. The princess's energy steadied, aligning with his presence. The alarms faded. Silence returned. When the lights stabilized, the princess stood upright, breathing evenly. Her posture had changed. She looked whole. Elias dropped to one knee, exhausted but conscious. The scientists stared at their readings in disbelief. "It stabilized," one whispered. "It shouldn't have. The bond was incomplete." but it was real. Word spread quickly, despite attempts to keep the event contained. Rival factions moved fast. They did not attack directly. They disrupted supply lines. They challenged authority. They pressured allies. The galaxy began to watch. Some saw opportunity, others saw threat. Human leadership was contacted within hours. They asked Elias if he needed extraction. If he felt endangered, he declined. "I'm where I need to be," he said. The princess recovered rapidly. Faster than any advisor expected. Her presence grew stronger. Not louder, but more certain. When she entered a room, conversations slowed. People listened. She was not changed into something new. She had become herself again. During a public address days later, she stood before her people. Elias stood beside her. Not elevated, not hidden. "I was told hope was not meant for me," she said. "I was told to accept silence. I was told to wait." She looked at Elias, then back at the crowd. Hope did not arrive as expected. It arrived quietly. It arrived human. The response was not cheers, it was something deeper. Acceptance, slow and uncertain, but growing. Ancient planetary systems responded to her presence for the first time in generations. Climate stabilizers aligned. Energy networks synchronized. The world itself recognized her, and it recognized the bond. Across the galaxy, data analysts reviewed the event. Humans were no longer just adaptable survivors. They were something else. Anchors. Not conquerors. Not rulers. Anchors. Elias struggled with the attention. He avoided cameras. He avoided praise. When asked how he did it, he had no answer. "I just stayed," he said. The princess understood. One evening, they returned to the high garden. The city lights shimmered below them, brighter than before. "I was afraid," she admitted softly. "So was I," Elias replied. She smiled. "Then we were brave together." Far beyond the planet, powers began to adjust their plans. Old assumptions cracked, new questions formed, and somewhere in the quiet of space, humanity's place in the galaxy shifted not with fire or force, but with, the world did not celebrate loudly after the bond stabilized. There were no grand parades or sudden declarations. Instead, change moved quietly, like a steady sunrise that could not be stopped once it began. The princess felt it first. She woke each morning with a calm certainty she had never known. Her thoughts were clear. Her body felt balanced. The weakness that once followed her like a shadow was gone, not erased by force, but healed through connection. When she walked through the palace halls, people sensed it. Conversations softened, arguments slowed. Even those who doubted her could no longer deny what stood before them. She was whole. Elias Carter struggled with the attention that followed. He had become a symbol without trying to be one. Advisors watched him closely. Foreign envoys studied him as if trying to measure something invisible. Humans were no longer just visitors in this place. Through him, they had become part of something ancient. Elias did not feel powerful. He felt tired. He felt human. He spent his free moments in quiet places, often in the garden where it had all begun. There, the princess would sometimes join him, not as a ruler seeking counsel, but as a person sharing silence. The council faced difficult decisions. Tradition demanded caution. Politics demanded control. But reality demanded honesty. The bond existed. It worked. And it had awakened systems that affected the entire planet. Energy grids ran smoother. Climate regulators aligned. Old infrastructure responded as if recognizing a long-lost command. The lead advisor spoke what many feared to admit. "The bond strengthens the world," she said. "We cannot undo it without harming everything it has restored." Opposition still existed. Some nobles feared loss of influence. Some rival systems feared what this change meant for the balance of power. But open resistance faded, as results became impossible to deny. The princess addressed her people again. This time not to announce a choice, but to define a future. "I was raised to believe leadership required perfection," she said. "That a ruler must fit a single path. That difference was failure. She paused, letting her words settle. I now know that survival comes from adaptation, from trust, from allowing the unexpected to teach us. Her gaze moved across the crowd. Our future will not be built on fear of change, but on the strength to face it. The response was quiet, but strong. Agreement spread not through cheers, but through acceptance. Messages arrived from across the galaxy. Some were cautious inquiries. Some were formal congratulations. Others carried concern, even warning. Humanity's role was being reassessed everywhere. Analysts debated what it meant that a human could stabilize what advanced technology could not. Human leadership received those messages carefully. They did not boast. They did not threaten. They responded simply. We did not plan this, they said. We did not force this. One human made a choice. That is all. That answer unsettled many. Elias met with human representatives privately. They asked if he wished to return home, if he wanted reassignment, if the weight had become too much. He considered the question deeply. I'm not trapped, he said at last. I'm where I chose to be. They respected that. The bond between Elias and the princess did not demand constant closeness. It did not control them. It connected them in a way that allowed space without distance. When Elias left the palace for short diplomatic missions, the systems remained stable. When he returned, they resonated more clearly. Balance, not dependence. The princess began preparing for her future role openly. She attended council meetings not as a concern, but as a leader. Her voice carried confidence without dominance. She listened more than she spoke. When she did speak, people listened. Elias remained at her side during public events, but never above others. He stood among guards, among aides, among citizens. He refused special titles. When asked what he wanted, his answer never changed. To do my job well, he said. One evening, as twin moons rose over the city, the princess joined him in the garden once more. I used to believe hope was something given, she said quietly. A reward for being worthy. Elias shook his head gently. Hope is something you choose to keep. She smiled at that. Then I will protect it, she said, for my people, and for those who come after. The galaxy continued to adjust. Some systems sought cooperation with humanity for the first time. Others approached cautiously, trying to understand this new role humans seemed to play. They were not conquerors. They were not rulers. They were anchors. Where chaos rose, humans endured. Where systems failed, humans adapted. Where fear ruled, humans stayed. Stories spread. Not exaggerated legends, but quiet truths. Of humans standing their ground. Of humans choosing loyalty over safety. Of humans forming bonds not through dominance, but through trust. Elias never liked hearing those stories told about him. I didn't do anything special, he said once to the princess. She looked at him thoughtfully. You stayed, she said. That is rare. The final decision came months later. The council formally recognized the bond. Not as an exception, but as a new understanding. Cross-resonance was no longer forbidden. It was respected, carefully studied, honored for what it was. The princess was named heir without condition. On the day of the announcement, the palace systems aligned perfectly. The planet's networks pulsed in harmony. The sky itself seemed clearer. As the ceremony ended, the princess stood before her people, then turned slightly toward Elias. She did not place him above others. She did not bind him with titles or chains. She simply acknowledged him. My future exists because a human chose hope when he could have chosen silence. The moment passed quietly, but its meaning echoed far beyond the world. That night, as the city slept, Elias stood at the garden edge, watching the stars. The princess joined him, standing beside him, not ahead, not behind. What will the galaxy remember about this? He asked. She considered the question. That hope returned, she said. Not through power, not through force, but because someone stayed when it mattered. Elias nodded, satisfied. Far away, in countless systems, the idea of humanity shifted again. Not as warriors, not as legends, but as people who chose to remain. And in that choice, the galaxy found something it had almost forgotten. hope,